Alright everyone, welcome back to our little Fallout book club that we're having, continuing things with episode 2 of the Fallout series. Last time we left off, it was really just an introduction to our main cast of characters we're going to be circling around throughout the show, that being Lucy, Maximus, and the Ghoul. The real meat of the episode wasn't so much the introduction of these characters. Obviously that is important to give them enough fleshing out to understand how they may react in any given situation they're up against, but the actual important thing is the motivations of these characters. Lucy, likely the character we spent the most time with, has her eyes set on recovering her dad from the raiders that raided her vault and took her dad captive. But our lines intersect when we look at Max and our Ghoul friend. They actually share the same target, which we're introduced to in the very beginning of this episode. First off, Mans threw a newborn puppy in the goddamn oven. That's fucking wild. But I'm gonna try my best to brush past that. I'll be real, I'm not super sure exactly what this scene is trying to do. Obviously, we're getting an introduction to the target in question. I mean, I can gather our target in question is building a sort of unsanctioned attachment to this dog that likely the other scientists are not. What's really notable about this is first off his reaction to the corpse that passes by, but mainly the actual importance of the glowing blue bullshit that he injects himself with. I don't know about y'all, but I would not have the balls to inject myself like this. Moving on, things obviously can't be so sweet forever because the unauthorized relationship between our target and his dog are found out, and faithful to his owner, the dog kills the snitch in question. With that, it's time to evacuate. Can we all be so for real right now? How the fuck did this scientist Dr. Dude not get eviscerated by this mounted minigun? This guy's not moving like Neo for real. Regardless, the plot has to proceed, and that sets us off onto the intro to Fallout Episode 2. Not a ton of thoughts about this intro scene. The main thing I want to know is what exactly is the reason as to why he's being hunted. Is it his relationship to CX-404, aka the dog? Is it due to the very same dog's killing of one of his colleagues, or mainly the injection of the unknown element that we saw earlier? I mean, it could be the culmination of all three that really kind of sets him off. My last question here is, was this all planned? Had the scientist always planned to leave his facility, or was it more so that he was backed into a corner where he didn't really have much of a choice? Intro aside, we're back with our main girl Lucy right on the back of her, venturing outside of the vault for the very first time. And it really is a desert wasteland out here. But that doesn't mean the world is entirely void of life. She does run into some rather interesting encounters along her path. The first notable is the remains of a family home that has been absolutely tore through. Nothing inherently interesting about that, but the main thing noted here is a bottle of something that seems to be poisonous in nature, but the importance is that it came from Vault-Tec. My own theory about this is the pervasive fear of nuclear warfare was so large that anyone that didn't have the means to preserve themselves and or their families might have elected to take their own life. And maybe to get a little dark, this might very well be a stretch, but Vault-Tec was selling an easy way out. This could very well be wrong. Don't correct me here. Let's have a little fun trying to overanalyze some of this stuff along our way. Let's keep trekking until we eventually are looking to set up camp for the night, where it's actually Lucy that's the first one to meet up with our target in question. Bro, you could have just woke her up like a normal person, not just like fucking watch her sleep or some shit. The conversation here, as well as, spoilers, the rest of the episode outlines one of my favorite character features about Lucy, and it's that she might be hyper competent in various situations, but as competent as she may be, she is generally lacking in the knowledge, making her naive. But the best line in this interaction is,
"If you insist on staying, then you will have to adapt. The question is, will you still want the same things when you have become a different animal altogether?"
With that, our target leaves Lucy to ponder on the interaction that just transpired. For a second cut of the episode, we are back with our main man Max alongside the Brotherhood, flying what seems to be quite the distance. And throughout that distance, Max is trying to make some kind of small talk with the dude in the power suit, that being Titus, but Titus is having none of it. So while Max seems to have gotten what he has desired, things aren't looking to be what he actually wanted out of becoming a squire. We end up dropping down because this dude Titus is bored and wants to fire off some rounds for fun at the large protest of Max, but big man in the big suit does what he wants. The copter takes off, leaving Max and Titus alone together. We bounce right back to the good doctor. I know he's a scientist, but while the doc is taking a break, CX-404 catches some kind of wind of something, and like we saw earlier with Lucy, this dog is pretty sharp. I do wonder if there's some kind of genetic modification of these canines, because I do find it hard to believe a dog is going to take any kind of super radiated monster, but I could be wrong. 404 runs off fetching a severed hand, which is wild. There seems to be a fair bit of remains strewn across the place, and just like that, we're back to Max following Titus with a great deal of struggle. And with that, we find that Max and Titus has run into the very location the scientist was just at. That is a crazy coincidence. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Just randomly dropping down and stumbling upon the location that the desired target is at is 1 in a million. And while we don't know what the scientist who... Until we know what his name is, I'm just going to call him Carl. We don't know what Carl and CX did. Titus and Max elect to check out the ominous cave in question. There does seem to be a lot of nuclear material around this cave, when Titus is electing to send in Max on ahead, not without Max's protest in large, because this is some fucking bullshit. I could never be a squire, man. This shit's fucked up. Right as we think some wild shit might happen to Max, this nuked out bear pulls up on Titus, and right as things are beginning to look real sticky for Titus, Max takes out the bear. But the coolish, I guess, facade is completely broken from Titus. The actual spearhead of this moment is while Max is in the process of getting Titus' stim pack, Titus just starts talking wild shit about Max. And like we saw in the first episode, the cracks within Max's character that were starting to surface are once again rising. Sensing his opportunity to take another step towards his goal, Max is electing to let Titus die, or maybe outright just kill him. With something like Lucy's character, I outline her capability but her naivety. But in Max's case, he might not be the most capable character ever, but the thing to outline within him is how cutthroat he is, or he can be, in the pursuit of his goals. Once again, we kick on back to Lucy continuing her journey, leading her to a random, well, he isn't really a citizen of anywhere, I don't think, but she runs into a random dude.
Real sick. Make him die, and you wouldn't have to put up with me for too long.
Lucy's looking for any kind of crumb of information about her father, but the only information she gets out of him is relative to a potential new destination of Philly, which actually happens to be the initial destination of Max and Titus, telling us that our paths on many different levels are going to intersect real soon. And just like that, we're switching back and forth in this episode with increasing speeds, because it's time for Max to suit up and don his newly acquired power armor, and I can't blame this dude right now, because he seems like he's having a blast, testing the reaches of his abilities and strength and speed, and even a little destructive power, which I really do wonder in this thing how Titus was not able to take the bear. There isn't really anything to pull from this scene apart from Max suiting up and just having a little fun, but that doesn't mean it wasn't pretty funny.
It's just... I was fucking my chickens.
Let's boomerang right back to Lucy, who's made it to Philly, which is crazy to see how green this place is. It's actually really pretty compared to the contrast of the desert landscape we've seen up until this point. At large, Lucy is traveling against the current of the crowd and general flow of people. Everyone in question seems to be going the exact opposite direction of her, really emphasizing the fact that she sticks out like a sore thumb, and that also comes down to her attire as well. But we get a brief little visual of my absolute goat. I don't care about the horrendous things this character's done. The ghoul is so fucking sick, man. This follow-up scene is kind of fun, where Lucy enters the shop. Her interest peaked only moments ago by seeing what seems to be an early model of Pip-Boy, and she finds the store in question laid out with Vault-Tec equipment of sorts. This scene really lines out the novelty of Lucy's situation. At the mention of Lee Moldaver, the tone in the room changes entirely. If it wasn't already stated enough, This scene does a job to note the lacking of knowledge that Lucy is plagued with. She believes her life in the vault was in the pursuit of something noble, and maybe in her eyes it very much was, but it's more stated that her living in the vault is a show of her privilege where everyone else on the outside was left to rot. Oh, what's up, Carl? Our man Carl runs into Lucy, just laying it on thick, telling her about the function of Vault 33, which something I do know about the Fallout games is that each vault, from my understanding, has an experiment tied to it, and each experiment can vary major or very minorly. Like some things that can be super inconsequential, or there can be very drastic experiments going on with the vault dwellers in question. I won't get into the degree of such because mostly I don't really know for myself, but I found that out in large cause of my roommate who actually really loves the games. Anyways, shit's about to pop off cause the mention of Carl's actual name, Siggy Wilzig, I like Carl better. It's time for our dude the ghoul to make a move. And man, let me just say my caveman brain is in full effect right now cause the aura that the ghoul is farming just by getting out of the chair, people are clearing out. The ghoul sheds a little light on how big of a deal the old doc is cause his bounty reaches pretty far and wide, going through all 6 agencies, whatever that actually means. So this guy Siggy is wanted at large, making me wonder what is the severity of what he's done. But please allow me to enjoy my caveman time cause goddamn the ghoul is fucking sick. Immediately blowing off Siggy Carl's left foot, and upon that the counter lady is willing to drop 1,000 caps on whoever kills the ghoul, and man, I'm getting juiced right now. If you guys didn't know, the currency for the Fallout games and series has actually been reduced to bottle caps. I don't know exactly why. In the games you can find pre-war money. I'm not sure the actual importance of bottle caps, but that's just the currency they use. I have no idea if 1,000 caps is a lot. Moving on, I was enjoying the building of the narrative, but I love the action anytime this dude is on screen. And man, the weapons are perfectly on theme with the weapons you'd find in-game. Now, just because the ghoul is cooking doesn't mean he doesn't get tagged, but he seems relatively unfazed. How strong is this guy? Now in all this action, Lucy takes advantage of the chaos, checking the counter lady's record book. And right as it looks like the ghoul's about to secure his target, CX-404 is attempting to protect his master, but the fight, well, somewhat effective, is not enough to take down the ghoul, causing the potential loss of CX-404. If this really is the unfortunate death of our companion, this reflects a sentiment of attachment to something like dog meat in the games. I really hope this isn't the end. Additionally, I always like to reflect any kind of companion in video games or shows to the companion cube effect. If you know, you know from Portal, but we do have to proceed. Lucy, in the midst of looking through the records, can't turn down the call from help from Siggy and steps up to the old boy, the ghoul, telling her reason for standing up to him in a way that seems to be memorized out of a book. And while Lucy isn't enough to take down the ghoul with her sedative-based tactics, our roads really are starting to converge at large, with Max showing up to take on the ghoul himself in the power armor. Something interesting to pay attention to is Max is noting that his name is Knight Titus from the Brotherhood of Steel. That's actually pretty interesting to me because maybe he's trying to cover up Titus's death, or that something like Titus is more of a rank, but I don't think it's that. And Max can't help himself but to farm a little aura / riz with Lucy, and now the fun really begins for me with Max really getting to take on the ghoul, and goddamn, this shit's getting hype. And I think I'm gonna be sick. The doc gets outfitted with a prosthetic leg of sort, and our counter lady is in no shape herself to be doing any kind of traveling, so the journey of our target in large is being pushed upon Lucy. While initially against it, she gets her own interest piqued because the actual destination of our scientist Dr. Siggy Carl guy is to actually reach Lee Moldaver. And she's really impressing upon Lucy that there's going to be no way that she's going to reach Moldaver without any sort of bargaining chip. Lucy's kind of running out of options and time and accepts what seems to be her main pathway forward. There's not much to talk about with these action sequences, but goddamn they're cool. And listen, Max, I get it. Lucy's fine. I totally understand. Anyways, while Max initially has the upper hand, a classic slip of the foot gives the ghoul a perfect opportunity to capitalize on the situation. What's actually interesting is the little nuggets that the ghoul is dropping here.
Well, I guess basic training ain't what it used to be.
Obviously, this could be a callback to him being a Marine, but it could also be that this is not his first time encountering the Brotherhood. This just shows that as powerful as the armor may be, armor doesn't outright beat experience. All in all, one way or another, the situation has de-escalated. Both Max and Lucy are out of there, even if it might not be of the most glamorous of ways. We move on, getting a crumb of personal time with the Ghoul, getting a lay of the land, essentially ascertaining that the Doctor is mobile now. And I know this is going to end bad because CX-404 isn't dead, which I love. But I mean, how effective are these damn stim packs? Because CX gets up right away. Obviously, being the companion of the Doctor, this is going to be an unfortunate trail that leads him right back to the Doctor. And with the Doc, we cut right back to himself and Lucy doing their best to make the trek. Shout out to the Doc because his foot is covered in blood because he is in rather rough shape if it wasn't already obvious. The Doc could use one of those stim packs right about now, but that might not be enough because our boy just dropped a perk 30. No, that was a cyanide pill. And this is where things start to really begin to spiral for Lucy, because Lucy's goal is to bring the Doc to Moldaver, but that's going to be pretty tough if he's dead. But Siggy says it's all good as long as she brings his head. Obviously, we know that because of whatever's implanted inside of his neck from the beginning of the episode, and this is really tough because Lucy's being pushed into a corner in multiple different fronts to do something absolutely gruesome, and it's being pitched to her in a sort of noble journey or like glorious fashion, and maybe it is, but in the moment it's hard to know what asking someone to do something like that would do to a person that, I can't stress enough, has lived their whole life sheltered. And the last nugget dropped is that Siggy knew Lucy's name. We close the curtains on episode 2 of the Fallout series with Lucy being left to carve the Thanksgiving turkey, if you will. And that was Fallout episode 2. I gotta say, while this is a fair bit more work than simply just watching the episode, doing this is really enjoyable for me, and I hope to some degree enjoyable for you. We are going to wrap things up a little differently with some running thoughts or maybe theories as we progress throughout the episodes. First off, I didn't remember that Siggy dies at the end of this episode. As far as the importance of what he's done or did, I have no idea as of right now. Assuming we don't reveal that in the very next episode, I'll see if I can get some kind of crumb of an idea in my head for the next one. But the biggest running theory I have right now is that Lucy's father and maybe mother were not originally Vault Dwellers. That would explain the Doctor's and Moldaver's familiarity with them at large, and how maybe it was a betrayal to go live amongst them. As far as our exposure to radiation, and them not being able to detect that, I'm not super sure, but maybe there's a method of cleaning yourself of any kind of radioactive residuals. Like I said, not super sure on that one, just kind of speculation. Outside of that, I really enjoyed this episode. All the interactions were super solid, but to bring out the monkey brain in me a little, my favorite part was absolutely the action sequences with the Ghoul. This motherfucker's so sick, but that's gonna be my time. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.